Hello, welcome back to the Fangirl Fantasy Podcast. I am Julie Russell, and today we have one of our favorite chicks on. She is one half of the chicks from the Chicks in the Office podcast with Barstool Sports, and she also just started a new podcast, Dime Package. Please welcome Fran Mariano.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. People are going to be so excited.
I'm excited.
And just people are going to be like, how do you have her on? So briefly, how we met. So Fangirl Fantasy, we throw pop culture dance nights, and we were having one in New York City, and it was Jonas Brothers versus Exes. And so I was like, Fran and her friends are just right up my friend's alley. Like, they're going to love this. We have the same interest. So how do I get her to come? I emailed your producer. I emailed anybody that I knew had relation to you. I tried to find out what your email was. Anything to get you to know that we were doing a Jonas Brothers dance night. Nothing. And then the day before, JD, who's our DJ, was like, I'm verified on Twitter. She's verified. It goes on the separate inbox. What if I just tweet her? I'm like, oh, okay, good idea. And so he tweeted you the wrong day.
Yeah.
and then you responded and you're like, oh, we're actually already coming.
So it's so funny because one, I just got to say, with the way this year has gone, that night, me and my friends still say that was the best night of 2020 that we had. It was because we were like, wow, when was the last time we went out and really just didn't have to care about anything and had a great time? And we were like, honestly, the Jonas Brothers night in Brooklyn, probably that was the best time. But it was funny because, we have my Jonas girls, we have our group chat, and the event was sent around. So we were like, wait, we should go to this. Oh my God. So we literally bought our tickets. We were ready to go before I even saw the tweet. And then I was like, oh wait, we're already coming to this. We should connect in some way.
I know, it was so funny because I think I started a month before being okay, how do I reach out and just see if they're interested in coming? And then the day before you're like, oh, we're going. I'm like,
yeah,
sweet, all that work for nothing.
I already bought my ticket.
But that night was so much fun, and now I'm friends with all of your group of friends, and I really think if we my group of friends from Boston and your group of friends in the New York area, we're the same exact people. Yeah. We just don't live in the same state.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why those events are so nice, because it brings people together where it's oh, you guys all connected because of the Jonas Brothers. We all connected because of the Jonas Brothers. So we all would probably still connect,
Definitely, 100%. I remember I had all the fat heads, the Jonah, Kevin, Joe, Nick. And I just remember the whole night you would not let go of the Kevin head.
You know what? Sometimes it's tough for Kevin, and I just everyone's fighting over all the other fat heads. I'm like, you know what? Just come here, Kev.
Well, I don't know if it was you or one of your friends, but I woke up with 3 or 4 tweets to the Fangirl page, and I think it was one of your friends, and she was like, "Oop, look who ended up in my bed this morning."
She brought it home.
It was the Kevin head.
Yep. That was very, very funny. Yes.
Yeah. So the Kevin head, I hope, is still safely in her apartment somewhere.
I think it is. Yeah. I think
that's so funny. And then, yeah, I'm hoping we can do that again soon.
Yeah, me too.
It was so much fun. So Jonas Brothers, that was the best day ever when you interviewed them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Is there another artist or celebrity that you're waiting to interview that would kind of match that?
Oh God. I mean, it would probably, it's a toss up between, I think, Miley Cyrus and Harry Styles.
I was going to say Harry.
Harry seems so impossible in my brain. I mean, that's how I felt about the Jonas Brothers at the beginning too. So you never know, but that felt so impossible to me. That one feels so impossible to me. Miley, that's also a dream that, would love to have something like that happen. Miley did go on the Call Her Daddy podcast, which is under, the Barstool umbrella. So our talent, Booker has created kind of a relationship with her people now. So it's just one day.
If you just want to come over and talk to it with us for a little while, we're not gonna say no.
I know. And we had Tish and Brandy on our show, and they were so great. And Tish was like so awesome. And she was like, "Oh, you guys gotta come out to the house and like we'll smoke and have fun and like whatever." And we were like, "Oh my God, yes, please."
She's like laying out this like perfect dream day, and you guys are like,
Yes.
yeah, sure. Like, but in your head, you're like, yes, we will be there. Tell us the date and time.
Exactly.
I mean, not that I know Harry, but I feel like he's so sweet and so nice that I feel like if you just asked him nicely, like what, like you just ran into him and asked him nicely, like, hey, I have this podcast, I feel like he would just go on it.
I know. That's and that might be the only way that could kind of happen, because that is sort of how the Jonas Brothers situation happened, just because we were so vocal. And I was so vocal about how much I love them. And we ended up making a connection with Champs, the bar at Penn State that their friend runs. So like through that was how we ended up like at the bar with them that night. This was last year in September. And that was when, like, in our very drunken state, I was rambling to them and talking about the podcast, and their manager was there with them also. And they were talking about wanting to see the Barstool office. And so the discussion was happening like purely in a social setting where it was like, okay, we're laying the groundwork, like we're moving slowly. And so it then happened that we like connected with their manager, and we had our talent booker reach out to her, and they went back and forth, and we're trying to come up with a way to like really find something that would work. And it only took a couple weeks for her to reach back out to us and say, like, we have this opportunity in Denver with Coors Light. If the girls could come out, and we'll do like a Coors Light collaboration. They have exciting news that they're announcing from out there, so we can tour the facility, and then you guys can have like a 30-minute sit down with them. And that was unreal, because it was also like we were doing that would like open the door for us with Coors Light as well, because we had not worked with them before, but now they're a huge sponsor on our show. So it was a very cool connection and ended up like working out so well.
On that flight to Denver, like what was going through your head? Were you playing the whole interview in your head? Like,
Julie,
when you walked in and saw them for the first time, like what was going on?
I had like a weird, how when you get like such amazing news and you're supposed to react like in a freak out way, but instead you're like weirdly very calm.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I was when I found out, and because it was more like I was so already panicked about it that I was like, okay, that we're going to be doing this. All right. Okay. Like, so the whole way traveling, I was more calm, just because like when I get really nervous, I just get more quiet and I'm all in my head. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, so nervous. And I was, collaborating with Rhea on what we wanted to talk about, and how like they know that I'm a fan. So like how overboard did I want to push that, where I was like, I don't want to creep them out. Like, but so it really wasn't until after that it hit me. Like it wasn't until we got back to the hotel after the whole day was done, and I was looking at like the picture on my phone and just like started sobbing. I was just like, oh man, okay. I kept it together all day, like was trying to be Miss Professional. And when I got back to the room, I was like, that was so cool.
But that's how it should be. You can walk in there and you can calm, cool, and collected. But after you're just like, that was God. It. That's my
Afterwards,
shit.
It was like, holy shit, that really happened.
I mean, I remember it was like everywhere when it was announced that you were interviewing, that episode was coming out. Yeah. I feel like the comments on your Instagram tripled compared to normal, everything. I should know this, but who's Nick, Joe, or Kevin? Like, who's your favorite?
I've always been a Nick gal.
Oh, I knew I liked you. Same. Yeah. As Nick girls have to stick together.
I've always been a Nick girl. I I don't know if it was just because he's like the closest in age to me and that felt like realistic, but I had told my friends this when I was younger. And, you know, I have my friends that love the Jonas Brothers and friends that like don't really care. And they're like, Fran, that's an absolutely psychotic opinion. But like when I was younger, and I kind of stick to it still, but when I was younger, I just like, and I would tell anyone like, you know what? I really think that if Nick and I got into the same room together, like we would hit it off. Like, I just feel like I'm his type. Like it would just work. Like I talked myself into this so much that it was just so funny that like, you know, by the time things clicked and it was such a beautiful thing to interview them. And then at the same time, it was like, God, I can't believe I finally get to interview them and they're all married.
Yes, it's like everything scenario you had in your head. You're like, I'm alone with them. It's one-on-one. Like me and Nick can talk on the side, but he has a ring on his finger.
Yep. So it was just one of those hilarious moments where it was like, I've dreamed about this and now this is like such a professional, like amazing experience that like I'm doing this, but it's not just like running into him somewhere. It's like my job.
Yes.
So yeah.
When they broke up, did you like jump to One Direction or were you just like devastated, heartbroken, like you're mourning the Jonas Brothers? Did you like jump to like another band? Because I know when the Jonas Brothers broke up, it's like the years that, you know, One Direction like took off. Yeah. So a lot of like the fan base jumped to them. Did you do that?
Yeah. I did love One Direction, but it was never like to the same level, you know, like it was something to put that focus on when the Jonas Brothers really weren't doing too much. But I don't know. It wasn't as intense. I just didn't feel as much of a connection I felt with the Jonas Brothers. To be honest, it was always the Jonas Brothers and Justin Bieber for me. Okay. So like the loved One Direction. But like my little sister was like obsessed with One Direction. So it kind of felt like that was her thing.
They were too young. Yeah.
Which was crazy because we're the same age. But no, it was the Jonas Brothers and Justin Bieber. Like Justin Bieber, because that's also kind of when like Justin Bieber was really popping off as well. And I mean, I had my bedroom had like the Jonas Brothers got all my closet doors. And then I had one full wall, floor to ceiling, that was solely Justin Bieber posters, like Tiger Beat, J14, Justin Bieber posters, all across. And then I had my like Burning Up tour 2008 Jonas Brothers tour poster that's over my bed. That is still over my bed in my room at home.
It is?
Oh yeah. It's an amazing poster. Like it's like in good condition. At one point when I do eventually have to clean out my room, like I think I got to get it framed or something.
You need to get it signed.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. So many. Yeah, that would have been smart.
I wish like those J14 and Tiger Beat magazines were so expensive now thinking about it and how much money. And we would buy them just for like the just two articles. And just for like the 2 articles that we could read to see who's your crush, like who's Nick Jonas' crush this month. And you're hoping that it's like your sign. And then ripping out the magazines. I have like a few of them still just like, and I'm like, where are the 300 magazines I bought? Where did they go? Did I just throw them in the trash?
Yes. Like that's like I would rip them out and the rest of the magazine would just immediately go in the garbage.
It's so yeah, like just I'm trying to think of who I didn't care about that I would just be like, all right, cool. Or you'd always have to decide which side you're going to flip. Like if Nick was on one side and Justin Bieber was on the other side, you'd have to like decide which one was going to go on your wall.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was the hardest part. It'd be like, ugh, really? They put them back to back? Like it was just like so rude.
Yeah, like you couldn't put like Sterling Knight on the back of this one.
Yes, exactly. Lucas Till.
Yeah, people that like we didn't really care about.
Yeah. Yep.
Your friends, I've learned, have a love for Coach Bolton. Like I have a love for Coach Bolton, and we were in a group DM for a little while. Do you love him as much as we do? Is it just your friends?
So my friend Claire like really thinks it's so funny, and I definitely am very entertained by everything he does. But it's like definitely not as intense, but I really enjoy how dedicated he is to the High School Musical life, that it's just like
He
still
has to
so
have
prominent
calendar-
on his social media. It's amazing.
He has to have calendar reminders like in his phone to tell him like, okay, this is the year that this came out. This is the anniversary
Right.
of this, because his content is on point, and he's my favorite person ever. Like, I love him.
His TikToks are great.
Yeah, and then he has like his kids who are now the age of like we were when High School Musical was out. And I'm like, I wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah.
When our like 20, 25, 26-year-olds are like running up to him in the streets like, Coach Bolton, or like yelling at him. It's so funny to me. But yeah, when I like posted something about him, your friend, it was Claire and like one of your friends were like, oh my God, you need to get him to come to an event. Like, we need this. They're like, we love him. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad
Oh my God.
I'm not the
He
only
would
one.
totally go to like a High School Musical night.
We have an open DM. Like, we have like a good little relationship. So I'm just trying to like butter him up.
Once the time comes when we are allowed to have these again, like I feel like he would be there 100%.
I will get him in New York City one way or another for all of us to hang out with him.
Yep, definitely.
Was there a concert that, last year that you really wanted to go to, and then you're like, oh, I can't go. Like, I'll just go next time they're around. And now you're kind of kicking yourself in the butt with the way this year turned out.
Yeah. So it was actually Maggie Rogers.
Love her.
I was supposed to go see, and it's like not a problem. It's not a problem. Like, I should not be complaining about why I didn't go see Maggie Rogers, because I'm pretty sure it was because I was traveling to Denver. But she was performing in New York, and my mom and I had gotten tickets like so long ago, and we were both like so excited about it. And obviously this opportunity came up, and it was like, oh, what? Can't go, sell the tickets. Hopefully we'll get tickets the next time she's in New York. So that one stunk, because I listened to her album so much. I loved it so much. So it was like, oh yeah, I'll catch her next time. And now it's like, is there?
When will that be?
I know. And I also like bought tickets for Justin Bieber's tour that was, supposed to be in September. The New York spot was supposed to be in September. Obviously that got canceled and then got moved. It's supposed to be next year. I don't know if that's even going to happen. Same with Harry Styles. Like, Harry Styles is supposed to be next year as well. That moved to like October of 2021 at MSG. So like, I still have my ticket to that, but it's like, will that happen? I didn't rebuy the Justin Bieber ticket because it was like the most frustrating thing ever, that I was on Ticketmaster, the worst system of all time, trying to buy and I was the one who was buying for everyone. So I had to buy like 8 tickets.
But then as soon as you get through and it's like top deck, last row, and you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, how could this possibly be all that there's left? I've been like, so I got tickets. And then, there was all that drama with like, he's not selling out the arenas. We're moving to smaller venues. So some cities changed and some didn't. But then when the whole tour got canceled and now there's this new tour, most of them are now arenas. So it went from MetLife to MSG.
Which is a huge difference.
Yeah, which is like with Harry Styles, it was nice because it was like, hey, here's your seat. It's just now October. Like it's still the same ticket. Like, it's just been moved. But with Bieber, it was like, here's your refund. And now in 2 weeks, when tickets go on sale again, you got to go through the whole process again, but just through MSG. And I was like, I'm not doing this.
I'll wait till like wait till the week of, see how tickets are actually selling.
Exactly. I was like, this is going to be, if I do decide to go to this one, it's going to be a last minute choice.
Definitely. The one thing I'm bummed about is we're going to have Loverfest for Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And which could be rescheduled. It was canceled, but she now has Folklore that's out. And I'm like, are we going to get gypped of a whole Loverfest, like Lovers era? Yeah, like, and then just really jump straight to Folklore? Because I'm like, I want to.
Is she even going to tour? She like doesn't want, like, is it just kind of like, hey, you know what? I'm not even going to tour now.
Yeah. So I'm like, I was bummed about that because I'm like, I really wanted to scream Cruel Summer at the top of my lungs.
Yeah. Yep. That was a tough one. I remember trying to do the tickets for Loverfest, but it was just like, I remember I like got into the queue and it was
like
a disaster.
It was like 4 hours long.
Yeah, it was a disaster. And I was like, okay, this is definitely going to be one that if it happens and the Wednesday before I decide to spend like fucking half my paycheck on a ticket.
Literally, that's how much it would be.
Then maybe, but when everything getting canceled, it just obviously changed the game.
Well, Taylor Swift concerts sell out quickly anyways, but then only having 2 Loverfest across the country from each other. Like people are from Nashville flying to Boston or they're flying to LA. So then it's like the whole country. It wasn't just your city was competing for tickets. It was your whole country.
It was like your entire region, which was wild. But that's also why I am so thankful that I did go to so many Happiness Begins spots, because it got to the point where I was like, am I going to too many? Like, I really am. Like, my friends were like, are you okay? You've gone to this tour.
How many did you go to?
I went to Philly, MSG, Denver, Brooklyn. So I think either 4 or 5.
Okay, that's the same as me.
Yeah, but then I also did their Pandora concert in New York. That was at Irving Plaza. And honestly, like, that was one of the better ones because it was so small and we were right in the front. We were right in the front row. And it was great because that was one of the times when I had tagged Kevin, and I tagged all of them like in a story of me being there. But, like, Kevin had actually opened it and like liked the story. And I was like, he saw me. He knew that was me in the front.
I actually remember at the Fangirl dance night, it was their last show in Paris. And you posted a story and you tagged all of them. You're like, if we can't be in Paris, at least we're here listening. And I remember you were like freaked out. You're like, Kevin opened it, or like whatever. And I'm like, yes, Kevin knows this is happening.
Oh, I know. And it's so funny because once you get into the DM, like, they get a notification in some way, unless, they straight up just delete it or something, which he could eventually, but I don't tag him in too much stuff. So it's like only when it's really good that I'm like, oh, I really want Kevin to see this.
Do any of them follow
I tag
you?
it. No.
It will come.
Dad.
It will happen.
Kevin follows Rhea on Twitter.
But not you?
No.
You're gonna have to, next time you see him, you're gonna have a talk with him.
I know. But yeah. So like I said, it was just like getting to go to that many spots was so great. And I'm like so glad that I did all that, because it's like, oh, you can't see them for so long.
I mean, we didn't see them for so long. And that's like also, people from work are like, why are you taking a half a day? I'm like, oh, gotta go to New York, the Jonas Brothers.
Yep.
And like, I'd be like, oh, the Jonas Brothers in town. Like, yeah, in a different state. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, you don't understand that when this all ended, it was like, will we ever see them again? So yes, I'm going to buy tickets to all these spots just in case something happens.
I mean, that's what happened when right before they broke up. We all had tickets to their show, and then they canceled the whole tour and then broke up 2 weeks later.
Claire and I went to see them at like PNC Bank Center in New Jersey. I want to say like right before the breakup. And I think it was kind of like when like Pom Pom was released, like around that time, and we were just like, oh, the GA tickets, they're cheap. Let's just go. And the 2 of us went, and we were just like sitting on the line, and we were kind of looking around, and we were like, this doesn't feel the same. Like, there definitely wasn't the same amount of people. Definitely wasn't like the same energy. And but it was also because like they didn't have the same energy. So it was very clear that like something was off. And I remember we both went home and we were like, that was great. And like, we're really glad we went, because that sneaky could be like the last time we ever see them.
Definitely. No, you could definitely tell they were off and they kind of hated each other in a weird way, or they just weren't vibing well. I went to a few shows there, and I remember in Boston, the first like 3-4 rows were all of my friends, because we were still the fans of them, and we were just like looking around, and we all got like the first 4 rows for like $100. It wasn't like we're spending $500, $600 and we're like, oh hey, what's
right.
up?
That was why like we hadn't even realized, and we were like, GA tickets are like $20. Why are we not going? You know? So we had gone, and it was like, okay, this is just not what's going on here.
I know. I'm low-key glad they broke up. I love the single stuff they did, the solo stuff, and then they came back better than ever.
Exactly. Happiness Begins was such an amazing album that's like, we would never have gotten something like that if they didn't take the time apart from each other, because the music that they were putting out towards the end was like not great, and you could tell that they didn't love it. So it was like it felt like a really great break for them, because they came out so much better. And also the tour was so great, because you could tell that they were so happy to be back doing this, you know?
Definitely. And it was so good. Like, I saw friends that are just Jonas Brothers friends, and I'm like showing up to shows, and there's like a bunch of us, and we're like, oh my God, like, even though we haven't seen each other in 6 years, you have like kids, you're married. It's like we all just came back together because we're like, this just makes us so happy. And they're happy. I don't know. It was just such a great environment. Yeah, I think the Happiness Begins was just couldn't have been better.
I mean, the connections that like when it was just so cool to get to make those connections again with people. Like Claire and I have been friends since kindergarten, so we have known each other our whole lives, and we had made connections with other girls. And then like it all just so happened that when the boys did the Times Talk in the city with Ryan Tedder, we got tickets to go. My aunt actually bought me tickets for my birthday. It was very nice of her. And so we got in line, and, you know, one of the girls that I had been communicating literally just online, because we had met on the subway, because she had listened to Chicks in the Office and knew that I loved the Jonas Brothers and she loved the Jonas Brothers. So we connected, and then I met her friends, and like we all kind of saved one spot in line. So it was like all of us who made these connections from other people, and we waited in line like all afternoon to get in so that we could get a good seat. So we spent a few hours with each other, and it was like a great connection where we all stayed in touch. And then, you know, we were all at different shows together, and then we all bought B stage tickets in Brooklyn. So like we all got to go to like these shows together where we just had so much fun, and it's just like so great to have these girls now.
Yeah, it's a bond like no other.
Yeah.
So obviously the Jonas Brothers kind of are what what made you pursue entertainment and things like that. Did you always know that's what you wanted to get into, is like podcasting, working in entertainment? Like, did you know that, or did you kind of just fall in your lap?
I always wanted to do like on camera stuff. I'm a massive sports fan, you know, from, you know, I do the Dime Package to my football podcast. So at first it was more of like I want to work in sports, maybe like sideline reporting, something like that. But I always loved entertainment, pop culture, read all the magazines. Like I was such a fangirl, and like knew all this useless, my dad calls it useless information. Like he's like all these like random facts about celebrities that it's like no one's ever going to ask you about that. So it just really worked out so well, because and it was either like, oh, do I want to work for E? Like something where, you know, you have that kind of dream where that's like an ultimate goal. And so talking about pop culture was just very easy for me, and it came very naturally. So I was really excited to get to do that. And I think it also just works really well because it's not just like I went to school for journalism and I am doing a news job that happens to be entertainment reporting, and I'm just kind of like reading about these people. I get so invested in their lives and what they're doing. And I just care. So like, I care a lot, and it's really, I think, translates to the show, which I think makes our show like
definitely
a lot better than a lot more.
It's not like you have to fact check you or anything. Like you can tell when you're talking, you care about it, and you just know it. I just feel the same way. Like I'll get texts and it was like, Julie, someone said that Nick Jonas dated Selena before he dated Justin. She dated Justin Bieber. Is that true? Like, I get random texts like that all of the time. And I'm like, yes, it is true. Thank you for asking.
Yes, I was always that person too that my friends would go to be like, wait, didn't so and so like used to date before? Like, I totally relate to that.
And it is useless facts. Like, I couldn't even tell you like anything I learned in school, but I can tell you like the whole timeline of the Jonas Brothers career, their hairstyles and what they were doing then, who they dated. Same with like even now with like One Direction. I'm like, oh, that hairstyle is this. It's just random. It is useless information.
Oh no, my dad calls me a font of useless information.
We've somehow turned it into useful information.
Exactly. Like it's funny now because my parents just laugh because they're like, who knew that all those years of you caring about this stuff turned into like your actual career? I'm like, yeah, told you. Like, you guys thought like that I wouldn't be able to do this. And here I am.
Literally like, ha, you lose.
Yeah. Like, my mom at dinner would be like, how do you know that? Like, what, And I'd be like, I don't know. I just really pay attention, and it's obviously paid off.
Seriously, no, it's amazing. I love it. You are like the ultimate fangirl who kind of accomplished the dream. You got to, you're at this amazing company you have fans now. Is that weird? Is that now like when people come up to you or see you, does that kind of like hit you weird or?
It's always very cool. I think one of the coolest things that has been a part of this job is the connection with the Jonas Brothers and other Jonas Brothers fans who listen to Chicks in the Office because they love them as much as I do. And so like last year, going to their shows and meeting other girls who listen to Chicks in the Office and are at these shows with us, like, it's just so cool. Like when we went to their show at Penn State and there were girls who had signs for like me and Rhea and the Jonas Brothers. Like it was like they made something for us to see them.
To get your attention.
Yeah, because they knew like where we had said, I think, where we were going to be. So people were getting our attention at the Jonas Brothers shows. And I was like, this is so crazy. And so wild.
Do you remember the first place you were where you like got recognized for Chicks in the Office a couple years ago? Like, do you remember that like experience?
Honestly, I don't, because it was more like, because I think it was maybe like somebody yelling at me on the street, because before we even created Chicks in the Office, it was like, oh, like Barstool Fran or Intern Fran or things like that. So it definitely came more from like the guy demo of where I work and
catcalling.
Not necessarily catcalling. They're all very, very nice. It's more guys being like, yo, like Barstool, woohoo, like kind of so shit like that. Never anything that's made me feel uncomfortable.
I said hi.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that would happen all the time. It wasn't really until like, I think I was just out at a bar one afternoon, and a couple of girls had come up to me and said, oh my God, we love Chicks in the Office. And I was like, thank you so much. Oh my God. Okay. Like, wow, people are like really listening to our show. This is awesome.
That's amazing. That must be like the best feeling ever, especially when you just started. You guys didn't even know like it was going to take off as well. And now you guys have been nominated for awards. You're interviewing your favorite artists. You're really at the top.
It's really so crazy. I mean, I met one girl at one of the Jonas Brothers shows last year who said, and we have our podcast, but we don't do it anymore. We used to do radio as our Sirius radio show every day. And she was like, I listen to you guys every day at 3:00. And we were like, what? Because we would always joke that like we had radio, which was amazing, but we were smack dab in the middle of like the full Barstool programming. And we're like, does anybody like really paying attention to our show? Like, because we had the podcast and we know people were listening to the podcast. And at that time, like the radio show was basically the podcast with a couple additional segments to it. So it was like, I was like, oh my God, that's like real dedication. Thank you so much. Like, that's absolutely insane that you listen to our show every day. And she was so sweet. So like those times it's very cool and still like very surreal.
I know, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just, even just hearing it, and I'm sure your friends that have been around you and now seeing like what you guys are doing and having fans is just an awesome experience. Do you have any advice for anybody that's looking to get into the pop culture, entertainment, podcast world?
It's hard. I mean, to be honest, like what you are doing, I feel like is the total path of how you connect with people. It's like you start your podcast regardless of like, if you think it's like you start your podcast, you start recording, you build social, you put clips out, like you try and like use a bunch of hashtag, you try and get something to pop, something to like go off. And that's what brings so much attention to it, because we created our social before we created our podcast.
That's what I did. I'm like, I should have launched this 6 months ago, but I'm like, I want a bigger following. I'm like, I don't want to release this and talk to nobody.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been a very interesting part. And I know people like it's worked the opposite for a lot of people as well, where they just start putting out episodes and then that content relates to people and therefore it grows the social. But for us personally, social coming first was a big help. And you just really have to, it sounds so cheesy, but you just really have to love it. Like if it's something that you are like, oh, I don't really know what I want to do. And I like celebrities. Like this is, it's easy to kind of talk about because it's kind of talking about nonsense. Like, it's easy to riff raff with, but you think that until you actually start to do it and you're like, okay, this is way harder than you thought. You really have to care about it and give a full 100% every time you do it, because if you don't, it's so transparent. It's like you do a story where it's like, oh wow, they really don't care about that or care about what they're talking about. So it's just like you really have to love it and be willing to give up a lot of time to grow it and care about it.
Are you finding it hard to grow your second podcast, or were you nervous that your audience wouldn't translate over to like your Chicks in the Office audience? Were you nervous that wouldn't transfer over to your Dime package, or did you know that the Barstool following would still be there?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I was very nervous about it just because this is a female podcast talking about football. It's two girls. There is no like male element to it really. So we wanted it to be female driven. But I felt pretty confident at that time starting it that we would get some crossover and yes, there are Barstool's very, very loyal. So I knew that there would be people who are listening just to check it out and see what it's about and see if they like it or not. Casey has a great following, Casey Smith, who I do the show with. So there is very much like that, the connection there. But I had also just bonded with girls. Like girls would see me out on Sundays in the city watching the Eagles and talking about it. And I would go to games in Philly and meet all these girls who like love the Birds and like love talking about them. And so I was like, I know that this is there. Girls would DM me on Instagram about the games. And I'm like, there's an opening here for a way to, have a football podcast that's not super serious. It's more kind of relaxed, fans of the game, not exactly, breaking down the X's and O's of everything.
Yeah, and the basics.
Yeah, and just like making it a little bit fun and then also bringing a little pop culture element to it and talk, we have a segment that's all about like kind of behind the scenes drama. Like if, there's Patrick Mahomes having a baby and who's Aaron Rodgers dating and kind of fun stuff like that, where brings a little bit of the Chicks in the Office element to the football stuff.
No, it's fun. I've listened to the past few episodes and it's not, you're not listening to it and being like, cool, it's another sports podcast of just like kind of like laying out what the game is. It's fun. It is and it's not stripping away from your personality either.
Right. Like we're still talking about like Olivia Culpo and like,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, it's definitely still your personality. It's just on a whole other element of it.
Yeah. 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 So thankfully we have gotten a pretty positive response to it, which has been really nice. So
Definitely. Well, I super appreciate you coming on. This is so much fun. And I really hope that when it's safe to do so, we will be in New York City at another Jonas Brothers dance night.
I really hope so, because as soon as you get that place booked, Julie, you know me and my gals will be there.
Booked.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting pushed back.
It's just waiting.
Back.
It's just waiting for us.
Yes, they're just waiting, just calling our names. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when we're finally able to do it, we will all definitely be there. It was just, like I said, it was like the most fun we had all year.
Well, again, I appreciate it. Thanks for supporting Fangirl always. You are the best. And I appreciate everyone listening to this podcast. And please check out Chicks in the Office and the Dime Package. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram at fangirl_fantasy. Thank you all.
Thank you.